Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. We are in my shop. We're going to work on Excelsior frame today. We're going to start. This is my jig. It does the rear of the frame. This is the bottom bracket. Fits on here. I've had all these parts on my shelf. See, I've got stays, and I've had these parts on my shelf for probably 18 years now, so it's time to do something. I've got an Excelsia motor over there. I got the wheels built from years ago. I got a set of forks. I got other parts too. So I'm kind of on the way, and so having the Excelsior as part of our YouTube repertoire, I guess you'd say, it means that it's very hard to run out of content, because that's my job, content. Mitch shows up and he says, "What are we going to do?" Aha. So we've got lots to do here. So the jig hasn't been used for a long time. It's been sitting in the corner, and actually up top over there. So I got it dusted off. I sanded all the ends where it's going to get tig-tacked. And then after the tig-tack, it gets brazed. It's a heavy walled tube, about eighth inch, probably 120 wall. And on the ends here, what I did is I made a plug out of 1018 steel. That's just mild steel. And I hammered it in, and I TIG welded it around. I filed it up, and then you get the invisible welding. So that's how the ends of the stays are. Got some other little pieces. I got the bridge tubes here. Those are already made. I had them bent at a local bender. Then I mited them. I did them all at once. I was going to make a total of 10 frames. I've made 6 now, so I'm not completely crazy. I've sold 5 Excelsiors now. The last one sold in March. It went down to Massachusetts. That took a long time to sell because the market has really softened up. I think it took 11 years to sell that bike, but it finally sold. And I got the dropouts here. I made those 19 years ago, something like that. So those are all ready to go on. Those go in here. Show you how that works. And yeah, thank you for joining us. We're heading up to 100,000 subscribers. If you haven't, please do. Thank you. And we'll get going. All right, this is the seat tube. It's also heavy wall. It's drawn over mandrel tubing. And this is the seat lug that goes on the top. And this is where the other tubes attach to. And the seat post goes down inside there, and then there's a 5/16 bolt that fits in there. So what we have to do now, the first thing we're going to do is to miter this so it fits onto the bottom bracket here. And this is a 3-inch tube. In the 1900s, when they made this was a casting, and it was just different. I didn't want to make a casting, so I got some heavy wall tubing, and I machined this down. This here is where the stays go onto, like that. And so what I've done is to mimic what a casting looks like. So I machined these, and these go on like that. See that? Because this was the casting. The casting came around here, and it had this piece on it. So what I've done is I put a chamfer there. I'm going to TIG weld this tube onto the bottom bracket. Then this slides down, and the whole thing gets nickel silvered. And it's a strong way of making it, because in 2019 I crashed an Excelsior on a track, and the bike flew in the air, and it got bent up a little bit, but you know, nothing happened down here. So I know that this is a good way of doing it. So I've got a hole saw. It's a 3-inch hole saw. So I've got this marked out. That's where that mark there, red Sharpie. I'm going to miter that now. So let's go to the mill, make a little bit of noise. I have to put the seat tube in the middle of the bottom bracket. So I'm going to use combination square, make a couple marks, and then I can eyeball it. A little hard because it's raised up from the surface, so that, I don't know if you can see that. On a bicycle frame, I always start with the front triangle, but for some reason when I build an Excelsia, I start with the rear triangle. This is the triangle, right? And it suits me. I could do it the other way, but I don't. So on the jig, if you can see this, can you see I've made a slot here? What the slot is for, I have to align the dropouts. They got to be at a certain angle. I haven't done this for quite a while, so see how that fits in like that. And then this has to line up with that. Can you see that? I hold that, and then, because these slots have to be in line with each other. So that's what's lining it up like that. And it also has to be all the way back like that too. So I should probably check that one too. I'm looking at the space in between these two, and they match, so I'm assuming that that one's all the way down. Okay, so now the next step is to put on the chain stays, and this has to be rotated so that that's at a right angle like that when this fits on here. So this comes over like that. Can you see how that fits? That's a good fit. And you see how one side is a deeper slot than the other. So this goes up. Okay, like that. Got to put this guy on, and the taper, or the counterbore goes like that. Wrong way. Okay, I like that. So that goes like that. This is what holds the seat tube. And then, so I should tack that on now. I was thinking about this, and if I tack it on this side, it's going to pull it over to hold on the jig. And then this piece goes on the top. I have to line up this so that it's coming right back. So I'll put a rod in there, and then I'll give it a tig tack. And then This is, we'll do this side here. We'll just check, see how things are lining up. And this, I think this should be a little bit lower. Let's see. Oh, okay. See, it's getting so long, I couldn't remember. This goes on the bottom. See, that goes on the bottom, and then that, so I think that the seat stays are in the right place, but this was getting in the way because I forgot. It's a good thing we got a sample bike here. This is Harry High Pipes. This is the bike I fell off. Here's the damage. Because the whole bike and me were 5 feet in the air. So that's what's going on. Okay, so that works out perfectly. See here, that's exactly how it's supposed to fit. It comes up and it's very close to the top. And then this is on the bottom. All right. I just assumed that it went on the top and it doesn't. Okay, so we're going to go over to the welding bench. I'll do a little bit of TIG tacking here. Get that in the middle. And then we'll put the other stays on. So I'll TIG tack it today, and then when you're gone, I'll do a bunch of brazing because that's going to take me a while. I want to talk a little bit about how I started the Excelsia project. It was back in 2005, and I went with a customer. We went to Davenport, Iowa, because every year there, around Labor Day weekend, there's a big swap meet. It's on a football field. The whole swap meet, it takes up the space of a football field, so there's a lot of stuff there. And at that time, I'd been working on other people's antique motorcycles, and doing this, doing that. It was all fabrication in my shop. And what I noticed was that I had one customer, and he would buy a motor. And at the Davenport swap meet, you could buy motors there. And usually for an old antique motor, they were about $5,000. So he got a motor, and then he came back and he needed a frame and a fork, handlebars, exhaust, gas tank, things like that. It was pretty simple in a way because it was so old. And so I would make all those pieces, and then he would buy some more parts. He would maybe spend another $5,000 on parts, and then my labor was maybe $10,000, maybe a little bit more. And so for that investment, he now had an antique motor, what looked like an antique motorcycle, except for the motor, it was basically new. And now he had a bike worth $40,000, $45,000. And I'm thinking, so maybe I could do something like that. So, a lot of those antique motorcycles, they were in the price range of $40,000, $50,000, but a board tracker was always worth more money because they were rare and kind of exotic for the time. So heading back from the swap meet, I decided that I was going to build an Excelsia because there were no Excelsias in existence. So I got home and I started to plan, and I realized that because I had a property, I had access, if I wanted to, a pretty substantial line of credit. And so I decided that I would go into that line of credit. So I did something which I called, at the time, it was financial recklessness. I turned away all my regular customers, and I went to my shop 6 days a week. On the 7th day I went trials riding, and for a couple years that's all I did. I didn't do jobs for anybody else, and I worked on the Excelsior and I lived off my line of credit. And if I needed a part or machining or castings made or patterns, I just paid for it out of my line of credit. And it was a kind of a freedom because I was really doing what I wanted to do, and it felt fantastic. Okay. So that's basically how I got going. And so I started in 2005, and in 2007 I sold the first Excelsia. And it had its flaws in the engine, but I was learning, and I kept going, and I've sold 5 now, so I'm not crazy. And here we are again, working on another Excelsia. Okay, so we have a rear triangle. An Excelsia rear triangle. I think that turned out well. I need to do a lot of brazing now, so thanks for watching. Mitch and I like coffees. Help us to get to 100,000 subscribers, please. And we'll see you next time. Take care.